Hello there and welcome back to Tins Makes. Today we're going to be making one of these absolutely adorable little guys from my Friendly Neighbourhood. To get started you're going to need some foam clay, some tin foil, some crafting wire. I just have some random sizes here. There we go. You'll also need some paint as well. I'm going to mix my own colours, grey and pink, so I'm going to need black, white and red. Oh, and Mod Podge as well, along with a paintbrush and probably some scissors. As the mice are these lovely teardrop shapes, we're going to need a ball of tinfoil. There we go. This is going to be the base of our shape. This is just so that we don't use up too much clay when it comes to actually crafting with the clay. This is just a base, but as you can see, I'm just testing to make sure it's the right size for my hands. I want it quite large. I want the rat to be quite large. So here we go. Just create your shape. I made it as smooth as I possibly could, although it's quite tricky, but I just rolled it on the table to make sure that I got it as smooth as possible, like so. And now we're on to the fun part. This is where we're going to need to cover our shape with our clay. As you can see, I didn't really have a rolling pin, so I just had to improvise with the items that I had, making sure it was nice and flat so that I could create my shape and wrap my shape properly. I did actually attempt to do this with Sculpey clay, but yeah, yikes. That did not turn out well. It looked like a fleshy potato. That's why I've gone with the foam clay. It's a little bit more forgiving. Once you've fleshed out your teardrop shape and you're happy with how it looks, I was very happy with the shape of this. To smooth it, I simply ran it under a tap and rubbed my hands up and down furiously on it until it smoothed out, because I didn't want any of these lumps and bumps that you can see. Once it had dried slightly after being run under a tap, I moved on to creating the nose. As you can see, the nose has a little disc just behind it. So I'm creating that disc here, and then I'm choosing my location. I did end up moving this up slightly higher than it is, but I just popped it on, and then I created the little baby carrot nose, like so. And I just popped that on as well. Because the shape was slightly tacky still, it adhered quite easily without any glue of any sort. So it just kind of stuck on quite nicely by itself. Although leaving it to dry, I did have to sit it up against something because it kept drooping. Moving on to the ears next. Again, as you can probably tell, each ear has a little bobble where they connect to the head. So I'm just creating those little bobbles and sticking them on either side of the head. They're fairly close at the top, but I ended up not having them quite so close at the top. Wanted a little bit more space between them. And this is what the shape should look like. It almost makes me think of the penguin from The Wrong Trousers with a different hat. Now we're moving on to the ears. As you can see, I just created a little template, made sure they were the right shape that I liked, and then I cut them out of foam. You can use cardboard as well. You don't necessarily need foam card. I just used the scraps that I had at hand, but you could use cardboard as well. Now I'm just sticking some clay sausages onto the edge of each ear. Just want to give them that nice rounded 3D effect. And I just used water to make sure each ear was smooth and had a nice texture. So you may be wondering, how do we stick these on? Well, this is where our crafting wire comes into play. I ended up taking 2 short strips of wire and I pushed them into the head of my mouse shape, my rat shape. I then attached the wire to each ear and I simply pushed them into place, and then I connected all the areas where you could visibly see the wire to hide any of that wire being shown. So here we go, there's me just pressing it. It does come across a little bit slippery, so I end up just pushing that ear in, and then I fixed up any mistakes at the back. And while it was drying, I did have to balance it up against something because they didn't want to stay in the position that I wanted them to on their own. They were a little bit too heavy. So that was ear number 1. And as if by magic, ear number 2. As you can see there, the nose is starting to droop. This is how I propped it while it dried for the next 24 hours. It does take 24 hours for this clay to dry, so be prepared to wait. After the first drying session, it was on to making the tail. This was the trickiest part. This definitely had my hands shaking, mostly out of like how fiddly it was, but also like frustration. Every time you squeezed one end, it would pop off the other. It wouldn't quite stick to the wire. As you can see, it wouldn't stick to the wire very well, but I persevered. I got a basic shape. I left it to dry for a few minutes. I went back and smoothed it with a little bit of water, and with some tender loving care, I eventually got a tail shape that I was very happy with. I just had to come back after the drying time, after the 24 hours. I had to come back with a few extra little pieces just to connect it even like more securely to the rat body. But there was a lot of gentle pushing, pulling, twiddling. And this was what pained me the most, was slotting it in. You can see where I squeezed all that product. The tail also needed to be propped up, the same as the ears, while it was drying. It's now very secure and seems to be standing on its own now, so the foam does hold very well. You just need to make sure there's plenty at the base. So he's got quite a thick tail base. And after 24 hours to dry, this is how he'll look. We just need to make sure that we now cover him in a big old layer of Mod Podge so that the foam doesn't suck up all that paint. I will say he still took about 4 3 or 4 full coats of paint, and I was being very impatient at this point because I just wanted to see him finished. So I did use my heat gun to speed up the drying time. This project's taken me about 4 days. So I just mixed up my greys and I mixed up my pinks, and this is how he looks. You could leave him here and just simply draw his eyes on, but I wanted to give him a layer of varnish. So give him a big old thick layer of varnish, just with the Mod Podge. Nothing special here. With this, I would say trust the process. He looks so milky and it does look like he might just dry with this white texture on him, but trust me, he will dry completely clear, and this particular Mod Podge is matte, so he will dry matte. And this was the point where Duna decided to bring a mouse in the house, so I had to stop for a moment. Last but not least, we need to draw his eyes. His adorable, sad-looking little eyes. Please don't mind my random jump cut there. My failed attempt at a smooth transition. It looked better in my head. But here he is. He's adorable. I'll show some better photos of him once it is daylight outside, because it is currently 9:30 at night. So it's a little bit dark. Here he is in all his glory, looking super fine. I love him. I love him so much. He's so cute. Yeah, so there you go, guys. There's my little DIY mouse/rat friend from my Friendly Neighbourhood. And if you have questions regarding the actual genuine live mouse, no, we didn't catch it. It's somewhere in the house. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Take care, and hopefully we catch this mouse.